Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris with you on this Monday. Good show on tap. We're going to invite you all to join in the conversation if you'd like. This is a live program. Later this week, they're going to be taped because we have Thanksgiving and all that. But we're going to talk about homes, real estate, the value of your home, whether you're looking to buy or sell right now. You know, we do this periodically, and I'm always fascinated by it because this market that we're in here in Middle Tennessee, and especially the Nashville area, is so dang hot. And we keep expecting it to cool off, and maybe it has a bit, but depending on who you talk to, they'll say it's as busy as ever, and that's what we're going to discuss today, and invite you to join in the conversation if you'd like. Questions or comments about your property, we've got an expert on. It's not me. It's Bernie Gallerani. Good morning, Bernie. It's good to see you again.
Appreciate you as always.
It's a pleasure having you on. You are into real estate. Give folks a little bit of background about yourself. Again, I always like to do that at the top of the show.
Well, I mean, real estate agent here in Nashville, of course, and been here 19 years and love selling houses in this area. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, because one of the big questions in this market is it a good time to sell?
Yes, right.
Nick, that's the one concern that we always hear from.
Is it a good time to sell?
It is a great time to sell.
Okay.
We're going to talk about why that is today, why the numbers actually show that the market, as some people might think, Nick, they think it's declining, and it's actually still increasing in home value. And so the numbers, I brought a bunch of numbers today that we can look at. But your house is actually still going up in value from last year and the year before.
Okay, so it's going up in value. Do people think maybe the market slowed a bit for a variety of reasons, but one, looking at interest rates? I mean, a lot of people say, okay, it costs more to borrow money, so yeah, people maybe aren't buying as much now because they're thinking, let's wait, it's too expensive to borrow. Is that had an impact that it costs more to borrow money?
Well, the challenge, I think it is. It's costing the buyer more money today than it did, 18, 24 months ago, for sure. But the housing market, so if you're a seller right now, your value of your home is still increasing, not at the rate it was in 20 and 21, because in 20 and 21, we saw about a 20% increase annually in home value, and that's just,
yeah, that's crazy.
That's almost not even fair. You look at this and go, well, gosh, why isn't it going to go back to that? It may never go back to that. And we can talk about today, if you want, why we don't really want it to go back to that. I mean, as a home owner, you're like, this is really great. But as a home buyer, it becomes a different level of a challenge. But the good news is, as homes are going up, I'd like to share some numbers if you don't mind.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, cool. So this report that I'm looking at was just a report that came out recently, and it was for October's numbers.
All right.
And what it's doing is it's giving us year-to-date values today versus what they were in 22 and what they were in 21.
For Davidson County.
For Davidson County.
Okay.
So I can pull this for any county, but since we're sitting in the studio today and we're in Davidson County, we might as well share those numbers for all the viewers that are out there. Here's what's really interesting. If you look at the unit sales, monthly sales, we had in 21 we had 1,039 sales.
Yep. In
21 we had 724 unit sales per month on average in 22, and right now this year to date we have 646. So that's a decrease of 10.8%. So we'll just call it 11%.
Right.
All right. But let's jump over to the units sold. In the units sold, we only, in 21, we had 10,007 properties, right? We have 7,300 on average per month right now. And if you look at that, that's a drop of 18%.
Okay, so fewer units being sold.
This is where the challenge with most sellers today is they're like, well, the housing market is down. That is correct. The housing market is down in the amount of sales that are going on, and we'll go into that here in a minute. But here's the fun part.
Okay.
Look at this. Average list price in 21 was $526,000 as average, but the average list price in 23, this is the market, this is the time where everybody thinks the market is falling apart. Look at the home value there. It's $689,000 as average.
It's gone up over $130,000.
That's right.
In 2 years.
That's right. So just this year alone, the housing value has gone up 5.1%.
All right, so I'm curious, with units sold, that number's gone down. You're right. The money that they're being sold for is more. Okay, are fewer units being sold because there aren't as many people putting houses on the market, or that some homes just aren't selling?
Both.
Okay.
So let's go with the first one because that's the really bigger question.
Yeah.
There's a lot less sellers today that are selling their home for one of two reasons. One is they refinanced that they either purchased in 2020 or 21, and they refinanced their home in 20 or 21 when interest rates are 3.5%. If somebody sells today, they're selling their home and getting into a 7.5% interest rate approximately. So that's actually slowing down the volume of people listing.
They might want to move, but it's just not cost effective for them right now.
That's exactly right. The second part of that equation is the houses are sitting on the market a little bit longer, and the reason why that is obviously there's less buyers, and a lot of sellers are still trying to price their house based on what was happening 18 months ago, and so because of that, there's less buyers, so it's creating a longer demand on the market. But if you owned a home today, if you owned a home in the last 12 months, your house didn't decrease in value. Based on these numbers, it actually increased by 5%.
So what is driving that? Because I'm always taught basic economics, supply and demand, what we're just now talking about. Fewer homes there, people not buying as much. What's driving the increase? Why has it gone up $130,000 in the value of a home over the last year and a half, 2 years?
Because what's happening is there's buyers still buying, and relatively inventory is still low. So contrary
to the demand for the few homes,
there's still a demand for the few homes are there, even though they're sitting there a little bit longer. But let's talk about the tipping point, because we're going to be at the tipping point here. And here's the tipping point. The tipping point is that you're starting to see this wave where the market should, based on these numbers, start to decrease these values.
Okay.
So if you're a homeowner today and you're like, I'm waiting till the interest rates get better, I think we've cleared up on other shows that that's probably not likely that's going to happen. We're not. I think if we change, let's just say we have a different government in office, it's not going to change this much at all.
Yeah.
Okay. It was really unhealthy to be at 3.5%. It's actually healthier for our housing market and our economy to be at 6.5%, 7.5% interest rates. Because it's slow. It can't. The housing market can't go at that rate because what happens? It takes affordability out. So the average homeowner, it's getting too expensive from the purchase. I'll give you an example. I put a house under contract this last week. Had that interest rate been 3.5%, that house payment would have been about $2,900. Today, that interest rate at 7.5% is $4,000. So you're looking at between $1,000 and $1,100 increase in payment. That really hurts the consumer. But now here's what's interesting. If the house value goes up 20%, then what happens? It takes that consumer completely out of the picture, so they can't purchase at all. So eventually, what's going to happen is something has to tip. What's going to tip here is not the interest rate. What's going to tip here is home value, and so it's already showing you home value. So let's go into another number if we have time before we go to break.
Yeah, that's okay.
If you look at the average square footage back in 2020, you have 2093 square feet, you have 2066, and you have 2137.
So it's bigger.
So it's a little bit bigger, But if you look at days on market, you had 15 days in 21, 12 days in 22, Nick, and 27 days. So what it's saying is that if your home is in the right condition and the right price, based on these numbers, it should take you 30 days to sell your house. We have homes today on the market 90 days, 120 days, 5 months, and you question that I would caution all the sellers is, well, if the average home is selling in 27 days, why is my home on the market 40 days or 60 days? Okay, and that's what I want to get into today on the show is what you can do to prevent longer days on the market.
Which is getting a good handle on, you've made some very nice notes for me here.
Yes, I did.
On getting your home sold and what you determine what your home's worth is. And that's the key. What you do to do that and what not to. We'll take a break on that note, but that's really what it comes down to then. If you're wondering why your home's not selling, I'm just from the outside looking in, I'm saying, well, it's probably because you're overpriced. And there may be other factors. I'll let you go into that. We can take a few phone calls. We have some coming in, 737-7587. But when we come back, Bernie's going to walk us through exactly what it takes to get your home sold. And really, that's based on determining what it's worth, so you know how to price it.
That's exactly right.
All right, we'll be back with more with him and your calls right after this. We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. We're talking with Bernie Gallerani. He's one of the top realtors here in Middle Tennessee, if not the top. How many homes did you sell last year, your company?
About 630.
Oh, my gosh.
Something in that range.
I didn't really understand that fully, but there are real estate agents out there that maybe sell 1-2 houses a year, if that. Is that competitive and difficult?
Well, 50% of every licensed agent in this town, there's about 15,000. 15,000 today. There'll be a lot less in January, and I'll explain that. But right now there's about 15,000, and 50%, so let's just say 7,500, didn't sell one home in the last 12 months.
I didn't realize that. How do you make... Listen, before we get into the basics on pricing your home, we have a phone caller. Don't want her to wait through that. Let's see what she says. Ann, good morning. Hi, Ann.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I live in East Nashville, where housing has done a building boom. And I just walked out on my front porch, and I look to my right, and I look to my left, and I can count 9 empty new builds, 4 of which have been on the market for longer than 180 days. And I can count 3 homes still being built that will probably sit on the market. And what this has done is brought thieves into the area to steal heating units, refrigerators.
Because they're sitting unoccupied. They just go into these homes and clean them out.
And now we have, going through our neighborhood, while children are in school, the ice cream man who doesn't sell ice cream. And so we need to determine if he's selling drugs or if he's scouting out the new builds that are sitting empty on my street and the ones around me. Keep in mind, I am living right next door to the Nashville Auto Diesel College, which is fixing to be torn down, and over 800 new people or apartments or houses are going to be built 2 streets away from me. Now, my question is, if the housing boom has not slowed down, why are these houses sitting empty? And 2, the police department is tired of the phone calls from the people that are watching the thieves go in and out of our neighborhood.
And thank you. Maybe based on what she told you, you can have a theory as to what's going on here.
Yeah, well, it comes down to one thing and one thing only, and that is the product, which is the house that is being listed, that is sitting on the market, is just overpriced in the market. And that is actually part of the biggest problem with the inventory today, is that everyone is still leaning on that 20% gain that they saw year in and year out. And as what's happening right now is you're working or seeing a product or a house that is too high in competition with itself, meaning that all the construction that's there's not enough buyers to buy the amount of inventory. You living in East Nashville is actually one of the issues where everybody is overbuilding in that particular area based on the buyers today.
Right.
So it's not that the home values are dropping, it's that there's too much product that has been built for the amount of buyers that are buying. They overextended the building in that particular area.
So ultimately, how do you think that's going to play out? Eventually, as it sits on the market, these builders are losing money every month based on whatever they spent to build these homes. So they've got to make it. I mean, why would they just keep eating that money? What's going to happen? What's the end game on properties like that? What will change?
There's only 2 options that somebody has. Okay, and option 1 is not going to happen. Okay, so
is that option 1?
Interest rates are not going to drop.
Oh, right. Okay.
So everybody's waiting right now for interest rates to drop. That's not going to happen. And when I'm talking about dropping, I'm not talking about a half a point or a quarter of a point or even a point. I'm really saying it's not going to drop significant enough to eat up all of that inventory. So the only thing that they can do is compete with each other. So every one of those properties are competing with each other. As long as they're still building, they're going to have this problem. As if they stop building in that particular area and eat up that inventory, it'll eventually sell. But it won't sell until those prices get more competitive.
Would you say that is a place maybe someone looking for a home could go and maybe make an offer and get a decent deal at this point? Or, I don't know, maybe they'll say, we were asking this, but you're not selling it, I'll offer you this.
I'm going to be careful about a special deal. I think that there is no such thing as a special deal. It is what the value of the home really is. And based on the level of interest that builder, in this case, if it's a builder, has to sell the property. So if the price gets right, the buyers will buy it. As long as the price is high, because understand today, buyers have choices today. They didn't have choices 24 months ago because there wasn't enough inventories, but now there is enough inventory. So if we're going to talk about absorption rates here in a minute, but you're looking at the absorption of the inventory. So if there are, let's just say there's a 4-month supply of inventory, would you question what that means, 4 months supply?
I was going to say, what does that mean, 4 months supply? There's enough to sell in 4 months? I don't know.
So right now, based on when it talks about an absorption rate of 4 months, I think we're at about 3.5 now in Davidson County. So we'll just say 4. So if you're 4 months, that means that there's one buyer for every available house for sale. And at this rate, if no other houses hit the market, it's going to take 4 months to sell. And
they'll be gone.
And then all the inventory will be gone.
So you'll need new inventory. Okay,
correct.
I got you.
So when we say we have a 4-month supply of inventory, how do we decrease that? So how do we go from 4 to 2 months?
Lower the price.
Well, either lower the interest rates to drive the buyers out, or buy the dryers in, or stop building and stop putting homes on the market, and ultimately you'll get to about a 2-month supply of inventory. Neither one of those things are going to happen. So what happens is right now is, and this is the sad part, most sellers actually believe that if they wait till the spring to sell their home, that they'll actually get more money. And in essence, most likely that won't happen. And the reason why is because there's a big portion of sellers that would rather sell when the grass is green and the leaves trees have leaves on them and the weather's really nice. And they're like, well, everyone looks for houses in the spring. Not necessarily true. But there is a lot of people that will go on the market during that time, and what happens is then you get really saturated with properties, and then there still aren't enough buyers to absorb it. So 4 months of inventory will become 6 months of inventory, will become 8 months of inventory. When we were in the 08 crash, I literally was looking at homes in the higher price points at that particular point, let's say 800,000 to 2 or 3 million, where we had 3 years of inventory on the market at those higher price points.
She mentioned that there's a big construction going to be put in not far from her. That inventory is about to increase even more.
Yes.
I just think at some point there's going to be deals to be had there.
There'll be deals to be had. But what you have to look at is really kind of no such thing as a deal.
I know you and
I keep talking about that. People are going to buy what the value of that is. You're going to make a decision. So I have a friend of mine who is a developer, and there was this project, and I won't say where it is, but there was this 14. He was telling me about it this last week, where there was the investors had invested about 12 to 14 million in this project, and he's the kind of guy that comes in and buys the whole project if it's going under, and so he had a chance to buy this whole project for $7 million, and they were 12 or so million into this project. Now that's a deal.
Sure.
Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you're buying a single family home and somebody comes in and other people have looked at it and the seller can't sell it, and somebody comes in and says, well, they were listed for 600 and I got it for 450, I got a deal. It doesn't mean that it was actually worth 600. It was probably only worth 450, and the buyer may feel they got a deal, but in actuality they just bought it for what it was worth.
Interesting. Before we get into the details, we're getting a few more calls here. Let's take that. Let's go to Derek. Derek, good morning. Hi, Derek.
Hey, good morning to you. I was just wondering, good evening, good morning to your guests as well. I have a property that I'm trying to sell. It's an R10 that I'm trying to get converted to HPR. Metro Planning says it can be converted. It's a property where my house has enough land on the side that can be developed while I can stay in my dwelling and just sell off part of my land, split the land. At one point, not even 2 years ago, for me asking for $350 for that side piece of property wouldn't have been a problem. It might have been a good price. Now I'm down to $250, right under $250 for the same property, and I feel like I'm just giving away the farm. And but then again, it's better to give away part of the farm and have something than nothing at all. How low should I go if I'm desperate? Well, I hate to use desperately, but I really do need those funds to take care of some home improvements and other things.
Yeah. It's gone down, yeah.
At this point.
Okay.
And I would just like some answers to that, and I appreciate you guys taking my call this morning.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Boy, what a great question. I'm going to try to unpack this one. Okay. Land has a different value than a residential property or a dwelling in which you'd live in. So the value of that property or the interest in that value in that property is going to change because it's not where somebody lives. It's only a secondary piece of investment property that wants to be sold. Today, the value may hold itself in retail properties, so where people live. Land value. And that's a great question. I didn't look at land value, but land value most likely, just based on what it's doing, will decrease differently than residential home dwelling properties. Should you sell the property and get what you can for it? My answer to that is yes, because I don't think that where we are in the economy today, I don't believe that value is going to probably increase anytime significantly enough to say, wow, I'm really glad that I waited. So I would always say the best time to sell is during the current time of the market, because if you really want to sell it, I would do it now versus waiting.
Yeah, apparently maybe he wasn't ready, but he waited when he could have gotten 350. Now, because of the things we've talked about, it's gone down, and it's probably going to go down more if he waits longer.
Well, I really love the question. I'm so glad that he called in, because those people who own land that there's not a dwelling on, this is different than the stats that I'm bringing in.
Yes.
Actually, I'd love to do a show in the future just about people that own land and property, because that does change things a little bit.
I'd like to do that. And real quickly, just with regard to land, I'm wondering, in Davidson County, though, if you're someone who wants to find a lot somewhere, maybe not in a subdivision, where you want to buy a piece of land and build on it yourself, and I'm assuming the land he's going to sell is perked, which allows you to build, or if it needs to be perked, or has city water, of course. Is there a lot of property like that laying around in Davidson County if you want to buy a piece of land to build yourself? And again, I'm not talking about in a subdivision where it's already cordoned off and you have to go with a builder. You want to buy a piece of land, get an architect to design something, and build a house for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is land available. A lot less than there is in other counties outside of Davidson County. I mean, let's just face it. Davidson County is a great county. A lot of people want to live in this area.
Sure.
And we're all compacted, right, as close to the city as we can. So that's pretty normal. But yes, you can. In his case, you can find great properties to build on. I feel bad because I really don't like calls like this where somebody said I could have sold it for more. And that is this is why I sit here, is to say, if we wait thinking it's going to change, the numbers aren't showing that's going to happen. So he's already saying he's lost some money on this deal. I just don't want him to lose any more.
Gotcha. All right. Okay, before we go to the break, we can kind of just set the table for it. A lot of this comes down to, as you said, what the home's actually worth. So a lot of people have an idea. All right. I think my home's worth a lot because I put a lot into it. Doesn't that count?
Well, like I said here, your home's value it's not what you have in it.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's not what your tax record shows.
Yeah, but my neighbor's home sold for a certain amount.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't know what that house had in it. And that's, right, there's a thing called features and benefits, and that's the value of your home, is not only the dirt it sits on, the neighborhood it's in, but also the quality of the build and what's in the interior and what's in the exterior. So there's lots of things. If I have the Joneses across the street that have an immaculate houses and the Smiths across the other side of the street, I don't take care of their property, the Joneses are going to be able to sell their property for more money. Okay, we'll take a break, and then we don't have calls. We'll dig into this when we come back. Bottom line on that is why, you can go online and kind of see, well, this neighborhood they're all selling, but that's why you need someone to go out and really eyeball the property. It may come back, oh, these are what the homes are selling for, but there could be one that was just let go, and it's a mess. So you have to eyeball it. We'll get into that to determine exactly how much your home is really worth, so you know how to price it, to sell it, to make the money you want, and to get out from under it as quick as possible. We'll be back right after this. We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. We were taking some phone calls for Bernie, but we are past that now. So Bernie Gallerani, we can just get into it now and we can take more calls as we go, about selling your home. What it takes to get your home sold. Well, I think what I would like to share with folks is we live in our homes, we raise our families and our kids. We watch what our neighbors sell for or don't sell for, or what they put in or what they don't put into it. And somewhere along that line, we come up with a idea of what we feel it's worth. This happens very common in the for sale by owner world, where the for sale by owners will sell the home, try to sell the homes themselves, but yet what they don't realize is over 90% of all for sale by owners never sell themselves.
Why is that? Just
for lots of reasons. Okay. One is they overinflate the value because they're emotionally attached to the property. Number two is as a realtor, we ask that if we're listing a property, we ask that the home seller, the owner of that property, leave during the showing process. So if an agent brings in a buyer, that seller actually leaves and lets that buyer roam that property, feel comfortable, sit on the couch, look in the closets, things like that. When a buy owner actually does it, they do more damage to themselves by overselling the property, talking about the property. The showings obviously go a lot longer because they're overselling what they have, and it actually turns.
Interesting. Is that the psychology of it?
Yeah, it actually turns the buyer off. So statistics all show that if you're a seller today and you're listed with an agent, and a buyer's agent brings in a buyer, you should leave that property. That's why there's a lockbox there, and let that buyer roam that property and sit on those couches and look in that kitchen and talk freely amongst themselves, which is the reason why listing with an agent is obviously a lot more successful.
And the bottom line, you've said this, a lot of people think, well, I'll sell it myself and I don't have to pay an agent fee. And look, I don't want to be in there showing my house, and I don't want to be there when you're showing my house so I can hear people criticizing it too if they don't like something. I just, I'm out of here. If you like it, fine. I don't want to have any part of that. And it's worth it. But don't you say ultimately, too, you're maybe going to, even with the fee, get more money through a realtor than if you try to sell it yourself? And I'm not saying every time.
Oh no. It's statistically over the last couple of years, I haven't looked this year, but they say that technically a buy owner will get somewhere around 16% less money than if they listed with a realtor. And yet they're trying to save 6%, but they lose 10%. And the reason why is they do it for so long, and then they get tired of the process, and then they start getting desperate. And because they've turned every agent off in the market, because every one time an agent tried to call them, they said, no, I'm never hiring an agent. It's tough to humble yourself enough there. But I'm not saying they do. They definitely do that. They do hire agents. But they end up taking less. And that's the hard part, is you're looking and going, I know that you really have the best intention in netting as much as you can in your pocket, but usually the buy owner is never at that advantage. They usually sell it for less.
Interesting.
But they think they sold it for more because they didn't pay a realtor fee. But if they've had to negotiate off that price, which they typically do? Yeah, that's where it hurts them.
Okay, so I stopped you on that to explain, but go on then, in terms of selling.
So we just discussed that your value is not what you have in it. So it's not the amount of money you put into repairs. It's like putting a pool in. You spend $100,000 with it for a pool. You're not getting your $100,000 out in that
does
pool.
Increase the value of the home, though, doesn't it?
It does. Well, if you want the pool, it does. But matching dollar for dollar, typically not. Okay. So if you put $100,000 in it, you sell the home 2 years later, your value of that property, depending on how old that pool is about 75% of its value, then 50%, and then so it goes down. So yes, if you want a pool, that's it. It's not what your tax record says your value is what the tax assessor says your value is. It doesn't actually mean that's the value, and that's obviously a big contention with sellers. It's not what you need to have. Let me explain this one. You're buying another home. So you have another home in mind, and you have to sell your home. You're like, well, I need to have this additional $300,000. Your value of your home has nothing to do with the home that you're purchasing. I'm going to give you an example of that. We had somebody that we just put under contract that they needed X amount to purchase another home out of state, and they said, well, I don't want to take money out of my savings to go purchase this other home. Well, your home value has nothing to do with the house that you're purchasing out of state, and so that's always an issue. It's not what your neighbor's home sold for. Some people say, well, isn't your competition and the value what your surrounding solds are? Yes, based on condition, though. What's the condition of the home? And it's not what your last appraisal said. This is always a great one. Sometimes people will have an appraiser come out and appraise the property. The appraiser is going to work a different angle than a realtor selling a home. More times than not, I'm going to tell you, 99 out of 100 appraisals that I have seen will sell for different than what the appraiser says.
More or less?
depends. It's usually the appraisal is higher because the appraisal can go all sorts of different. They have different set of rules how they find value than what a realtor actually approaches it on. Okay, so your value is not what you want. It's really what the buyer determines what it's worth. And what I'm saying now, follow me. When a buyer looks at a home today, they're looking at homes typically in the school system if they have children, so they want to stay in a certain area. Okay, so a lot of buyers will shop because of schools if they have a family. Your competition is what's in that school district, most likely. So whether it's elementary, middle school, or high school, obviously it's going to open up based on the size of the school, right?
Yeah.
All right. So your value of your home is what your competition is selling for based on the features and benefits that you have in the property, which is what we discussed up here. Okay, we discussed housing absorption rate. So you have to look at it and say, what's my competition? This is the fun part. If you have a 4-month supply of inventory and you sell one home every 4 months, which is what this really is saying. So you have enough you need 4 buyers to absorb it all, right? So you have a 4-month supply of inventory. If you have a lot of inventory in this case, it's the best priced, best conditioned home for the best price that actually sells the property.
Right.
So I'm over extended in the quality of the property and in the countertops and the tile and the wood floors. So I have all of these things. Just because you have all those things, it makes it more appealing, but it doesn't always make it more valuable.
Well, I mean, if I'm the buyer, I mean, you're trying to talk about what you're going to make appealing to the buyer so they can determine what it's worth for themselves. And if I like, the granite countertops, or if I like that swimming pool in the back, that's going to make me more likely to pay more for it, probably.
So,
right? I mean,
right. So let's go with this. Let's say you walk in the house.
Okay.
You love the floor plan.
All right.
You love it.
Yeah.
Think it's great. It fits you and your family. Okay. But you don't want a pool.
Okay. And the pool's back there. I don't want. Yeah. So
let's say you don't want the pool.
Yeah.
Let's say you love the house. You're pricing it as if it has a pool, but it doesn't, and you want a pool, and you're looking at other homes. So it's a little bit. I say it's a little bit like if you're single and you're dating. You have a chance to meet a bunch of different people, and you're going to choose which one you think you like best. You're going to make your decision based on what you like. So you make the decision like, well, I really want a pool. I'm not going to give them this astronomical price because it doesn't have a pool. I got to put $100,000 worth of pool in, so I'm going to make them less of an offer. So if you don't have a pool and you're competing against someone who has a pool, then that could be an issue.
Okay? Right.
So you're not competing against the interest rate. This is a fun one. You're competing against your neighbor. So really what you're doing is if you're in the school system, let's just say high school, and all your competition is in that particular area, and that maybe high school is a contention of whether the buyer makes a decision. You're really competing to the quality of that home. If you're the seller, you're competing against the quality of your home based on the quality of the neighbor's home, not just square footage. Interest rates show us right now at 7.5%, based on these numbers we talked about here, there's a lot of buyers still buying houses.
Right.
Okay? There's a lot. Matter of fact, we see it said in here, based on monthly sales units, per month right now in Davidson County, there's 646 homes selling every month.
Right.
So that's people who say, well, no one's buying homes, well, we've got 650 right here that say yes to that. Okay? So you're really competing against the quality of your neighbor's home. Okay.
So is that where you want to take a hard look at your neighbor's home and get a sense of what they have, and then take a look at your home? And I mean, because you've said before, there's certain things maybe that don't cost a lot of money that you can stage that help you sell your home, right?
There are a lot of things you can do to improve the quality of your home. What's really interesting,
just to show it.
We talked about your condition. We as realtors can pull up to the front of a house with our client and look at the property and actually know what the inside looks like based on how the outside looks like.
Okay, meaning like, are you saying if you pull up and it's unkept, the inside's likely unkept? Have you never been to one where there's, like, whatever reason, someone hates doing yard work and it looks awful, but inside is immaculate?
No.
No. So usually they're reflective. No. I guess in general, if you're really kind of unkept, inside you will be outside, and vice versa.
Yeah, because it's, as a mentor said to me one time, if you show me the quality of your bank account, I can tell you basically what your house looks like. Or if you show me your house, I can tell you what your bank account looks like. What they're meaning is those two things come together. So if you have a really nice outside, you probably care enough to take care of the outside. You probably take care of the inside. If you take care of the inside, you probably take care of the outside. So a lot of times when you walk up, and I've listed said, I've sold personally about 1,600 houses, and you drive up to the street and you look at the front grass and you look at the planters, you can typically tell what the inside's going to be like.
We got to elaborate. Let's take Joyce real quick. Joyce, good morning. Hi, Joyce.
Hi.
Hey, what's on your mind?
I have a property in the downtown Nashville area, and I see all of these ads that come on. We buy houses as is, and this, that, and the other. Is that safe, or what is the drawback to that?
Joyce, that's a great question.
We're going to get to that.
Yeah, I actually offer a program like that. It's called an instant offer program. I'll tell you exactly how it works for the viewers. So anytime somebody's offering you a program like I have as an instant offer, or any of these other people that you see have billboards around town, they're really offering you a discounted price, and that's going to range anywhere from about 15 to 20% of value. Meaning
less than you could get if you went through a realtor and took the time to do it. Or put it on the market to sell.
Yeah, and Joyce, I want to help you with this conversation because this is very interesting. A lot of people think that, they're getting 15% to 20% less. They are and there aren't. So let's talk about this because I actually do this program. So inside of that 15% is a commission of typically 6%, and then inside of that other 15% is what we call a marketing fee. And the marketing fee says, Joyce, I'm going to come in, I'm going to offer you cash. You're not going to have any showings on your property. You're not going to have to open your door for anybody. You won't have to clean the home. You won't have to do any repairs or anything like that. We're just going to write you a check and you're going to walk out. The challenge with it is some sellers will go, well, yes, Bernie, but you have 15 to 20% difference in cost. Fair. Most homes that are listed on the market today, and I'm going to say high 70s to 85%, 75 to 85%, are all doing between 5 and 10% price adjustments in order to get those properties sold. So, for example, let's just say I walked into a home today. I said, okay, we have a 6% commission. We have a 10% marketing fee, whatever it might be. So we're gonna knock off. Besides, we'll take the commission out for a minute. Let's just take the marketing fee. 10% of that $500,000 is $50,000. So really, what happens is we're taking the responsibility that if we didn't price the home right, which 75 to 85% of the time we're not pricing it right in this market, we actually have to eat that cost. So in a lot of ways, it's really that the seller's not taking that much at all less, because we then now have to either fix the property up and sell it, so we have to invest money into that property, and or we're going to turn around and sell it for
them. So just to make it real clear for her, and I understand what you said there, but that can still be a little complicated. But for Joyce, let's just hypothetically say that Joyce's home is worth $400,000, and she comes to you and she says, Bernie, I'm trying to decide whether or not I should have you list it for me and let's sell it the conventional way, or you give me the offer right now and buy it now.
Correct.
Your question to her will be, okay, what? How will you help her decide what's best for her?
Yeah, that's great. So on the retail end, depending on the quality of the home, that's the one thing we never know is what the quality. We talked about features and benefits. We don't really know, and as investors, we don't care. Right? We're offering a service. People like Joyce who say, I don't want to hassle with it. I understand there's a lot of repairs that are needed inside of the home. I don't want to deal with that. We say to Joyce, listen, this is what we can get retail with its current condition, $400,000. Or we're going to give you, let's just say, $40,000 off at $360,000. We'll write you a check, all cash
for $360,000, and she's out.
And she's out. She doesn't have to deal with the house, and then we take it over, and we either choose to fix it up and then resell the home. So we're going to invest money into that property, and or we decide that we're going to try to sell it back for $400,000 and then recoup our loss.
Okay. Now, on the other hand, Joyce might say, well, you know what? I think I could handle some of this fixing the place up and sticking around to do it conventionally. Is it possible that you would be able to sell it for more than the $400,000?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, yeah, because we're going to price it in its current condition. So if Joyce decides that she wants to put, typically depending on the repairs, you're going to spend anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 painting, carpeting, putting new appliances in, things like that. So if Joyce wanted to take the property and invest that herself, would it make her property, let's say, worth $440,000? Potentially it could, depending on the improvements that she had to make.
So, but in a nutshell, and it makes sense as we go to the break, what you think about, if you go go ahead and do that one quick one-time offer like he just described, you're probably going to get a little less money than you would otherwise. But what that's saving you is the headache of, as he said, staging and showings and all the other stuff. You get it done right then and there. For some people, that's worth it. If you're not in that pressure and you don't mind showings a bit, you can probably make a little bit more money if you go more the conventional route. That's how those things work. We'll take a break. Be back. Final segment with Bernie right after this. As we come back on, I just want to remind folks, and we have the graphic to put up there again, for people like Joyce, all right, and Bernie, you can say this. Bernie Gallerani is with us. This is the instant cash offer deal that he was talking about. And again, you see these ads constantly on air, but you'll say, Bernie, I mean, you know, given your druthers, you would prefer people to sell it conventional way. You don't necessarily make money yourself.
No, that's not really a money maker for us. We just have it as an option. You and I were talking off camera during commercial break. It's really not a profit source for our company, but we offer it as an opportunity to share something with them that might be the best option for them.
For some people, it may be just in that scenario.
It is for some people.
They need to go in a hurry. They've got to go, boom, right? Is that it?
Yeah, we just had one this week we were on, and the folks needed to get out of the property. There was some financial issues there, and unfortunately we couldn't help them based on what they owed on the property and what they had to have in order to sell it. So those numbers couldn't line up, unfortunately. They were already at their bottom number. So selling it retail for them was their only option because they couldn't take the full cash offer deal that we offered. It's not a moneymaker for us. It really just, why we offer it is it allows people to call us and say, hey, maybe a parent passed away, they live out of state, they don't really care about the house, they just want to get the money out, the house needs repair, we'll write them a check and then they don't have to worry about it. Others that live in their home will call us and find out that it's not their best option, and for us that's fine too, because that's really what our business is selling homes retail for as much money as we can. So we would prefer to list and sell the property, but we will write those offers if needed. Okay, for a range of properties, this is our final segment, and there's the instant offer number, which, you know, Joyce, call and find out. You can bounce it off of them and see what you think. I jokingly talked to my son who's working and living in Knoxville, and he's out of college a couple of years removed, and he's like, well, Dad, I'll never be able to buy a house. I mean, I'm talking about young people graduating, getting out in the real world, and then seeing some of these numbers. You know, the median price for a home in Davidson County, according to this, is almost $500,000. That's money in the realm that my son at this point in his career cannot even imagine. What would you say to those who are out of school that have stable jobs, they're not making a ton of money, and think that they'll never be able to buy a home? What should their game plan be? Well, here's the thing. Just because it says the average home, it doesn't mean that a first-time home buyer falls into those price points.
Yeah, of course.
And there's less. And so if you were in Sumner County, which is where I live, you could buy a house in there for $350,000 to $400,000. Now, it's on the lower spectrum. It's a little small 3-bedroom, 2-bath, but nice home, right? You'll be able to get a nice little ranch home. Or there's even some new construction going in that are townhomes and things like that, that they can get into at around $400,000. So those kinds of things are very reasonable for her first-time home buyers. So if you're a first-time home buyer, don't get shied away by hearing these average prices, because these are averaging the $1.5 million and the
I need to remind him of that.
Yeah.
Okay, the other part of it is the stumbling block for a lot of them is the down payment, the lump sum initially that you have to put down in front. How do you deal with someone on that? And percentage-wise, I guess the more money you put down, the lower you can get the interest rate. Is that it sometimes? Is it,
well, it really has to do with your credit is what lowers the interest rate. Okay,
so how much should you have to put down? You know,
typically, it depends on whether it's like a THDA product or not, but typically just a rule of thumb, 3.5%.
3.5%. Okay, so you have to have a few $1,000s to lay that down there. But that's the whole idea for a lot of these kids. Maybe start a little fund, set that money aside. Maybe your parents give you a little hand. But once you get in, even on a $400,000 house, if you go with a 30-year fixed mortgage, what's that a month?
Let me just say something. We can pay rent, and we can toss our money off the window because we're not creating any value.
Yeah.
And what I love about real estate is if you buy a $400,000 home and your property's increasing by 5%, you're increasing on the full $400,000.
Yeah. But
you've only got out of pocket, let's say $25,000 or $30,000 to get into the property.
Right.
So if you let's just say it's that's $3,500 for every 100,000. So we can do the math on that, right? So let's just say $12,000 to $15,000.
Right.
So you're out $15,000, but you're increasing your value in your home by 5%, even on top of the loan amount of, let's just say, $385,000. So what a purchaser needs to understand is, yes, you're tossing out a little bit more money in interest rate, but if you calculate the difference in what you're losing by throwing it away versus the equity you're building on even the money you're borrowing. So if you take 5% annually on that rate at, let's say, 7%, and you're not renting and you're buying, you bring that cost down of that, let's say, that 5%. In this particular case, you're really actually only losing about 2.5% on the interest rate of the house.
Yep. And if it's a first-time homeowner's house, they're buying it. They're not planning on staying there a long time. It's going to increase in value. You're going to have some home equity and an investment. And by the way, like I said, there are people at this very station that rent apartments in Davidson County right now. They're paying well over $2,000 a month. They have roommates or whatever. I mean, you can get in, and your mortgage is going to be right around that or less for a nice house somewhere.
That's exactly right.
I mean, so your rent is going to be pretty much what you're paying for a mortgage.
Well, let's just say you're paying, I know people who are renting and they're paying $2,200, $2,300, $2,400 a month.
And it's out the window.
And you can get a house today for probably $2,600, $2,700 on a house payment and get a return of 5% on borrowed money.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting, think about this. How would you like to get, if you took the math, and I don't have a calculator here with me, but if you took the math at $400,000 versus putting $15,000 down, your return on that money is the best investment. You couldn't find an investment better versus the money you invested versus the money you borrowed versus the 5% interest increase. It would be the best investment you ever put for the money you put down.
I'm going to send a link to this final segment today to my son in Knoxville, and he needs to watch that because he's freaked out about it. He's like, oh, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Oh, I don't know if I can.
It absolutely can.
And it can. And I want people to understand that.
Do I have a second here?
Yeah, we got about a minute.
The thing I want people to understand is it's not as bad as the rumors, and it is intimidating. How people want to make you feel, and people talk about the down housing market. If you really look at it the way it needs to be looked at, it's actually a no-brainer that you should purchase. I will be an advocate to say, I don't care if you don't even call me. I'm fine if you want to do that. Call your realtor and get into something, because buying a house right now is better than renting a home.
He's exactly right. Bernie, you are truly the best. I've learned more from you in real estate than anyone else ever on this show. And I've been doing this for more than 2 decades. We'll put up his contact information as well, and there you have it, along with the instant offer. But Bernie Gallerani, he's on every month, and that's just an inspiring thing, because I want people, it's the American dream. Don't rule yourself out of being able to buy a home someday. It can be done, even if you're young and getting going.
That's right.
Thank you for coming on. We'll see you again soon.
Appreciate it.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you.
All right, we'll be back. Programming note right after this. Stay with us.